Hi guys, I'm Wendy Houston with North Run Baptist Church here in Richmond, and RWMU is taking part in the mission to provide reusable, washable sanitary napkins for, I believe, young ladies in third world countries. There is a big mission trip that's going to take place with a doctor, and she requested these. So we're on mission to do this. So I thought that I would show you an easy way that we are going to be making them. So here we go. I looked at 3 million tutorials online to see what they were using, why they were using certain products, and what was a fairly easy pattern that the average sewer can use, or sewist can use. And I borrowed one from Sewn in Peace, and it's SEWINPEACE. Sewn in Peace at blogspot.com is where you'll find it. There's a downloadable pattern and instructions, and just watching the video helped me a whole lot too. So that's why I'm doing this. I loved that pattern, but I tweaked it for our purposes. So what you're gonna need is flannel. 100% cotton flannel. I've got some here. 2 pieces identical for top and bottom. You are gonna need 2 layers of 100% cotton quilt batting. Very important that the batting has no scrim. Now, if you're a quilter, you know that scrim is basically a poly coating that keeps the cotton fibers from fraying or pulling apart rather, and you don't have to quilt so close together, which we love. But in this instance, you don't want that. You want 100% cotton, no scrim, 2 layers, and it's very soft. This particular brand was Quilter's Dream. I know it has no scrim in it because I've sold it, so I know that. And you also need something called PUL, polyurethane laminate fabric. This is everywhere. I've got this at Joann's on sale. Use your coupons. It's great. You can get, it's 60 inches wide, so you can get a lot out of a yard or two. But it has a stretchy polyester one side, and the other side is laminated. But it's very soft and very supple, and it's what you're going to see in coverings for, you know, homemade diapers and things like that. So it is a leak-proof barrier to help with this, okay? And the reason we're doing this, by the way, if I didn't say, is, you know, young ladies especially are trapped at home because they can't leave when they're in their menstrual cycle because of leaking, and they don't have the resources for disposables like we have here in the States. And so this is why we're doing this, so these women can be educated. These women can work. These it's a beautiful mission. So I'm really happy to do it. So here we go. The first thing you're going to do is take one, you're going to take, the pattern is downloaded. I cut it out, and then I traced it onto cardboard so that I could use it a bunch of times over, and traced it onto my 2 layers of flannel, which have been put together right sides together, because right sides love each other. So right sides together, trace it out. The line that you traced is actually your sewing line, not a seam allowance, a sewing line. So please cut it out about a ½ an inch, a scant ½ an inch outside of it, as I've done here. I actually went a little bold and got a little bit bigger. So that's what I've done to these 2 layers. I'm going to take 1 layer, and I am going to take my cores, and I am going to lay them on here so that it looks like, can you line up, the cameraman, can you hone down on here and show where you're going to do? We're going to line them up so you're going to got an even amount on each side, and it's centered. And then we're going to tack this down. This is going to end up being the top of the pad, but we're going to tack it down. I'm using a black thread so you can see, but normally you would not do that. You would use something that's, you know, matching and coordinating with the flannel. But I give myself about an 1/8 of an inch. I have a wonderful marking on my presser foot. That's very handy. And this is a really cool trick so that there's no knots laying on top of the fabric. I mean, can you imagine something knotted and hard sitting on top of, you know, where it's going to be up against delicate tissue? Let's make it comfortable. So I'm going to take my turner here. I'm going to take the needle down into the machine. I'm holding this firmly, and I'm going to bring it back up. And when I do, Let's try that again. I'm going to tug. When you get a tug, there we go. It pulls up the bottom thread, and I take my seam ripper and go tug it so that I have both threads laying on top of my fabric. I'm going to get them out of my way for the moment, and now I'm going to start. And I'm going to start sewing, and I'm going to back stitch a little bit, and then I'm just going to come again about 1/8 of an inch close to the edge. We want this to sit in there and not move around or be lost in the fabric when we're washing it. We want this anchored. As you ease around the corner here, just take your time. You can pivot. I kind of hold tight. Pivot, 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 pivot. If you're getting too close to the end, put the needle down, lift up the presser foot a little bit, ease it just a little bit so that you can start finishing out this curve. And now we're in the straightaway. If you like NASCAR, this is kind of fun. And here we go. Do the same thing here. Slowing down a little bit. Lifting my presser foot to ease it a little bit. If you don't lift that presser foot and you try to turn, you're going to get buckles in your fabric. Last little bit, heading toward the straightaway. And it wants to bunch a little bit here, but if you ease it into it a little bit, that's not going to matter. We're going to go back over our stitches a little bit, back it a little bit. Done. Clip your stitches. We have 3 here now, and just 1 on the back. You know, of course, the black pull through because I have a white one on the bottom and a black one on the top for y'all's purposes. But my bobbin thread is the light color that matches. Now, once we have this, we need to make 2 quilting lines in it, and the quilting lines serve a purpose. They help draw in the moisture. It gives it, water, fluid, follows the least path of resistance, right? So that's why leaky roofs are a pill to find. But so this is what we're doing on purpose. And you just need to do 2 straight lines. Your pattern shows you. So here's your guideline. And it doesn't need to be perfect. A great tip is you can use, sorry, my cameraman's sleepy. He's yawning. You can use a piece of masking tape. Most of the ones that people have around the house or painter's tape is about 1 inch wide, right? So you could lay it down, center it, and just sew along the edge of each one of those. And you've got these beautiful straight lines. I'll think, gosh, what an incredible seamstress made this. But anyway, so I put my presser foot down. I'm going to do the same thing. No knots on the top, okay? Draw it up. I just stick my seam ripper in that loop and pull it until it's all the way out. Tuck it out of my way. And then we're just going to, again, straight stitch. A little back tack a little bit. Taking a drive. Back tacking a little bit there. Went off a little bit. I'm not going to worry about that. It's not going to hurt my feelings, especially since the thread, this is going to be the inside. Ain't nobody going to see it. All right. I'm going to do the same thing about 1 inch away. Right up against the edge of that seam. Good place to start. Go down, come up. All right, so here we go. Back. I have a wonderful little back. Hello. There we go. Done. Ta-da. All right, so now the pad is pretty much good to go. We are going to put it all together now. Let me get rid of some of my other threads so it looks pretty for you. If you clean up as you go, it makes it a lot easier. So this is going to be your top, right? So we've got, I take the PUL, and this is where you and your organization are going to need to decide what you want to do. You certainly would have less waste if you traced everything out, but you're going to need to trace it with all this added seam allowance. So you would have to lay it down, cut it out now, and it's just really flimsy fabric. it would be a pill to try to keep it all together. You are going to have places where it's going to bulk up and twist because you're trying to. I would just cut, I believe I do a 9.5 by a 10.5 inch rectangle. 9 is more narrow, the 10.5 here. And that way, I'm just going to lay it down like this because we're going to cut all this away, but I don't have to worry about lining it up because, again, it's very, very slippery. And here is the one that we didn't sew that matches this one. So that goes pretty side down, and we're going to do shiny side, shiny side down against the table. So fabric side touches fabric. So good to good for the bottom. And then, no, I lied. It is good up touching the fabric. Forgive me, because we're sewing inside out. So here we go. So pretty side up, laminate side, shiny side down for that. And then again, pretty side down. So good wants to touch good. These were cut together, so I know they're, not perfect, but if you line up the imperfections, then there we go. These match. So this is going to be much more readily smushed together. Did you get that? So I'm going to show you one more time. When it comes to, if you just want to put these together first, good sides to good sides, and then lay this as a unit down on the shiny side is against the table and the softer side is up against the fabric. And I have these wonderful little Wonder Clips. I don't like pins. I don't like them. They prick me and they get me in a bad mood, and sewing is my therapy and puts me in a really good place. So and this doesn't have to be perfect because we just have so much seam allowance here. So you're going to have to decide, sacrificing a few pennies for the seam allowances so that you can get a bunch done and not have to go back and fix anything. That's my thought. All right. When we go to sew, we have to turn this inside out, and there's going to be a lot of bulk. So we need a good 2 inches or so at least to be able to do that. And so we need kind of a straight area. You never want to have to do it on a curve. You would hate yourself. So this is the straightest spot. So when we've come down off this hill, or this is actually like the wing of the pad, I'm going to go a couple of stitches beyond that hill. So there's the first mark. That's actually going to be our ending place right here. So one of the wings, doesn't matter where, you start where you want. And then I'm going to come down a good 2 inches just before it hits this big curve. So it might be a little, but it's not great. And that is my starting point for sewing this together. Kind of think of it like a pillowcase. And my stopping point. And we are going to backstitch here really well, and we're going to backstitch again here, because when we go to cut this out and we need to go to turn it, there's a lot of bulk coming through that tiny little space. Kind of think about birthing a baby. And so we need it to be really strong. You ready to go? Let's do this. Thank my cameraman. This is my 13-year-old son, Tucker. Hey. He's getting a bit of a life lesson here in what we're dealing with. Yeah. So it's a good thing, right?
Kind of traumatizing.
Okay. It's all right, Mr. Man. It's life. All right. So we're going to do, you really don't have to worry too much here about going down and getting those stitches back up, because this is all going to be buried inside. So I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to start. Take a couple stitches, back stitch, and go back over your stitches, and we're going to follow the line. Remember, this is your sewing line, not your seam allowance, as opposed to by the way, when you go to cut out your batting, it is the true cutout. So cut out on the line after you've traced. There's no seam allowance with your batting. I forgot to tell you that. But look, I mean, this is sewing for dummies.